Ready? Being 10 o'clock, May 17th, call policy and governance to order. Properly posted on May 13th. Entertain a motion for the minutes.
Motion to approve minutes from April 26th and 28th.
Motion and second on the minutes. All those approved, aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item 2, discussion possible action regarding selection of May 2022 BOCC Employees of the Month. HR, welcome.
Nope. Can you bring us copies, please? Thank you.
We have option A, B, and C. Any preferences today?
C.
All right, I have a motion for B and C.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3, discussion possible action regarding policies, processes, procedures, planning, oversight, administration of Oklahoma County's ARPA funding allocation. Hello and welcome.
Hello, good morning. All right, so just a few slides to jog through here, and we'll kind of get you familiar with this new program report, as we're calling it, that we'll be presenting in these meetings and the BOCC intern. We can go to the next one. So just covering some updates and actions, and then a glance at the inventory of both proposals and projects that we have so far. Okay. So first, just some initial updates. Like I said, this is a new report and one that we'll plan on using going forward. You know, something that we'll work on iteratively with you and taking your feedback to make sure we're presenting on what you need to see and or what you would like to see.
Hold on a minute.
Sure.
Are we saying this is item 4?
If he's going over their updated report, I believe that would be item 4.
This is process though, right?
This is process related, right?
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Item number 2 here, just as an update, the web form is up and running and has been delivered, so to speak, to all of the county department points of contact, and we've started receiving proposals. There's 5 so far, at least as of this morning. Number 3, we did some legwork to identify each department point of contact so that we could give them access to the web form and work with them on their proposals as we receive them. And then number 4 there, last week or the week before, we delivered the briefing packets to all the points of contact within the departments that contained information about context of what we're doing here, overview of the process, how to complete the web form, etc. And then we held briefing sessions with them to go over that information together and answer any questions about the process. Okay, on this slide, we'll just use this as kind of a roll-up of the high-level sort of major and immediate actions and updates that we want to give you in any given session. So with this one, we're just calling out the proposal submitted by the Juvenile Bureau here and just mentioning this as an FYI at this point. This is something that we're prioritizing among the other proposals just because of the urgency and the effect that it might have on the coming FY planning cycle. I'll pause there if there are any questions or Concerns, thoughts? Okay. And then this is where we'll spend, the rest of our time if we need to. Realizing that when I convert this to a PDF, we lose our color coding in the status key. So apologies for that. That's impossible to read, I realize. But just know that everything is still kind of in that triage stage. So we've received the proposals. We're looking at those closely on our side, and we're going to start working with the submitters to fine tune those proposals and get them in shape to be able to present to you for your evaluation. And then this is just a roll up of the list of proposals we've received so far. And then on the next slide is just a sample of the more detailed look with all the information that we're capturing in the web form and how you can zoom in on any one of those proposals. And so that's it for today. We're just getting into this, so it's still a little light, and no immediate decisions or actions are needed at this point. But open to any other questions or feedback you might have. You'll see in the next section, there's a separate inventory for projects. So proposals that have been authorized for funding and have begun being implemented, essentially. And of course, there are none so far. So this is where we're at.
I understand what you were saying.
Any questions around the process or this report or any feedback?
So we've essentially combined 3 and 4 is what just essentially happened, which is fine. What you're telling us is this is the process that we're going to be examining for the future, correct? Things are
Right.
going to roll in. You're going to come in and you're going to give us an update, and that's going to be what the update looks like, correct?
Correct. Right.
Okay. So a little bit of both. Just to clarify. There you go. Second.
Motion and a second to receive report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. And you've got meetings the rest of this week, is that correct? Or
That's right. So my colleague Danielle and I are here on site. We're posted up in the HR conference room, and we're holding what we're calling office hours sessions to just kind of talk through ideas, answer any questions that departments have. You can sign up and to book a time with us. We do still have open times available. All the points of contact within the departments would have received that email. So come and see us.
Okay, perfect. And then how many people have signed up? Who hasn't signed up? Who've we not heard from? Do we need to prod them along as a board? What is everything going well?
It's going pretty well. We've got maybe partial participation for sure. We haven't talked with everyone, but I have a list, but I don't have it handy with me at this moment. It's, I guess, up to you if you feel the need to.
I was just if you needed help reaching out to people, if people aren't reaching out to you, that I know that the BOCC and I believe the Budget Board also asked all departments to get with you, and if there hadn't been any, then we would talk to them and emphasize the importance of coming and talk to you.
Sure.
So.
And of course, we're always available by email, and we can hop on remote session calls as needed as well, beyond the office hours. So we're open to that.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else? Item number 5.
Just all those items, plus whoever else puts in an application, those items will be ready for review June 1st for us to move forward. Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily all, but those that may have an effect on the budget planning cycle, or at least that's my understanding. Those are the ones we want to prioritize for that deadline.
Okay.
And that's the way we're approaching it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Item 5, requesting guidance for update IT policies. Is any of this entertained with the executive session, or you have other items?
This is more of a general question
Okay.
as it pertains to really what I wanted to know as just for clarification and guidance for updating IT policies. Do we want to, would this committee prefer any and all Delta changes to any IT policy move through policy and governance, or only when the policy radically has to change because of an event? I just wasn't, I want to make sure which way we want to do that. I wasn't sure how to word the item any better. So I'm sorry for it being a little
No, you're
vague in
fine.
general.
What would be an example of a radical policy change and something that would be more of a routine?
Something more routine would be maybe like changing a password length from, say, 8 characters to 10 as a requirement. That's fairly minor. Something major would be changing the entire security stance of a policy.
My preference, and I don't necessarily understand the difference between routine in your world, but as directors, I think that you and Dane should have the ability to make those types of changes as you deem necessary. The more radical, where our security stance might be, or attaching outside programs, et cetera, to the web, those types of things, I think we would have an interest in. We
Okay.
might not necessarily, or I might not necessarily understand it all, but I'd at least like to hear about it.
Okay.
If you're gonna tell me my password needs to go from 10 characters to 12, I don't need to discuss that.
That's kind of what I was wondering. That if it's something that's more routine in nature like that, we just wanted to make sure that it's being submitted properly, that we have more current as we can have policies posted.
I think the funny thing there is what's routine to you may or may not be routine to us.
And I realize that
So-
even extending a password a couple of
Yeah.
can cause some chaos.
I'm similar to Joe. I think you're a director. You have some sort of autonomy. You should be able to make those decisions. And if there was something that we thought that you had gone too far that we wanted to discuss, I think we could discuss.
Okay.
At a later date, or call a special meeting and discuss it. I probably, with the rest of us up here, trust our directors extensively to make the best decisions for the county. So if at some point we need to step in, I'm sure that we will and have stepped in before. So go forth and prosper.
Thank you, sir.
We trust you.
That's
That's
all.
it? All right.
Yes, we means I got a monkey in my pocket.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Entertain a motion to receive that report.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 6, discussion and possible action regarding next year's agreement with OSU Extension. LaDonna?
Good morning. I think all of you guys have our agreement for next year that was part of the attachment. I was just kind of told to come and present this to you guys for the next step, so I wasn't for sure. If you guys have questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
How much of an increase is this?
I'm asking for $55,000. I hadn't really had an increase in a while back. Last year I did have about a $4,000 increase, and that was because our IT with OMES contract went up. So I visited with Dane and Richard on that to kind of offset that. We, as OSU Extension, of course, we are OSU employees, so we're a little different than the county employees. So our raise system, bonuses and stuff like that's totally different. than, the county employees. So for us, we do not ever get bonuses. What we do is annually they will look at giving raises. And when Oklahoma State University, like President Shrum this past year came out and said that she was going to give everyone raises, that's when we get raises. And we had not had a raise in over 4 years. I had some staff that's been with me right at 4 years, and this was their first raise. So things is a little bit different in my world. So that's the reason I'm trying to explain it. So when my staff and my county received raises, that put me at approximately $25,000 in the red because I did not have that allocated, of course, in my budget. They took effect December the 1st is when we received our raises. So that's the reason I'm kind of asking for that part. The other amount of money is I'm asking for $6,000 more for M&O for myself. Oh, no, not for myself, I guess for the county building. I visited with Keith, and we talked about this building being 7 years old, and it's going to be. Keith said to me that it's going to be time to start doing. Stuff's going to break down and upkeep and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but a couple of months ago, the parking lot lights all went out in the county parking lot. So I again visited with Keith on helping figure out what to do, and we decided that I'd take it out of my budget because of how the lease actually read that we would be responsible for any outside electrical. So they decided that was parking lot lights. So that was $10,000 out of my budget that I didn't expect. So I just kind of picked the number 6,000 for M&O. Of course, I don't know if we're going to have any issues with the building. I do know we've had a lot of plumbing issues in the women's restroom. I've had to have a plumber come out already this year 3 times. So again, that's the reason I'm asking for that amount. And then so basically roughly about 31,000 is what I need to kind of continue without having to let anyone go, et cetera, and keeping the county building maintained, because I know it's important to do those prevention measurements, and like for the AC unit, that type, have people come out normally and check it and make sure it's working well instead of not maintaining it at all. So I am being responsible in doing that. So the rest of the money was kind of I guess you could say my wish list. It's for 24,000. I really would like to hire a part-time program assistant. I know with COVID, our youth have really taken a toll mentally and physically also. So our 4-H we've had a lot of more interest in doing 4-H clubs and doing health and wellness. And I have 2 full-time 4-H educators, and they are just worn ragged. And I would love to be able to hire a part-time person that could work in the office and do all the paperwork, enrollment, and all of that to give some relief from them. So that's kind of that part, and that came up to be about 55,000.
So, you may have heard the discussion earlier that we've got these 2 people down the hall.
I came in late, so I apologize.
So we've got 2 people. These
Oh, hi. How are
fine,
you?
fine young people here. They're here for the ARPA stuff and all things encompassing. Now, one of the things you just said was the 24,000 and the COVID
Yes.
and so on and so forth. I would love for you to have that conversation with them.
Are they volunteer staff?
They're contractors.
Contractors,
and
okay.
they're actually going through and helping us with how to prioritize and how to expend our ARPA dollars.
Okay,
To
gotcha.
me, I think what you just said probably qualifies for it, but that's what they're for.
Okay.
You got,
Well,
yeah, shoot.
I think the first stop possibly should be Oklahoma State. I would assume that they received federal funding as well.
Well, that's a good thing about this stuff is that
So
it can all be stacked. So
you got,
I have not, no one has reached out to me with the ARPA funds for Oklahoma State University. They're, of course, in Stillwater, so I know there's a lot of different departments, and we're extension, we're in every county, so it's a little bit different. But Joe, I've never been reached out by anybody regarding ARPA funds from OSU.
if you could check internally, because the really cool thing about the ARPA funds are the ability to stack, which is
Okay.
abnormal for federal funds. Usually it's one or the other. So, I mean, they kind of encourage partnering and splitting costs. So if there's a way to do some of this with partnerships, not only with OSU and the state and then ourselves, and let's see what we can do there. But definitely meet with them about that.
Okay.
Cody,
Then Mike can explain it a little better to me. Okay.
has BET discussed, Cody, any of this at all? Here's what I'm saying with BET is that it's an interesting year. There's a lot of things going on. We're looking at keeping people as flat as possible, and looking to September for a supplement, so on and so forth. And Cody, step in and explain. Tell me where I'm wrong or how crazy I am.
You're not wrong and you're not crazy as it relates to those two particular statements.
Love you.
No, we are having to maintain pretty much a overall flat budget for next year. Are the revenues that the budget board received was just a $276,000 increase over the previous year. That being said, there was discussion in BET related to increasing money for this particular contract. It was our opinion that it was premature for BET to consider giving any more money onto this contract if BOCC did not approve a contract at a higher level. So the first step before BET should, in my opinion, consider increasing the dollar amount for this contract is that BOCC wants to increase the contract. It's a BOCC contract. If BOCC is interested in increasing it, then we can look at, are there funds available? But at this point, it was premature for us to consider.
Joe, help me out. Is that BOCC building or a PBA building?
That is a BOCC building, as I recall.
There's a BOCC building out there and an OSU building out there.
Okay, yeah. And obviously, we
Well,
wanna
then there's a
protect our
couple
assets.
other contracts out there with the same scenario. So, but then why would, we're gonna get off this agenda item a little bit, but, so those other, well, including this contract, unless the BOCC passes it with the higher amount, but we're not gonna go out there and go find requisitions in the higher amount if the scenario is the budget board's not gonna be there to give us the money.
Right. So in my mind, what I would think the process would be to at least start here and see if the commissioner offices are interested in increasing the funding level. And then if there is interest, then it could go to BET or BOCC could approve a contract pending. I think it would be better for you guys to, if you were going to make a recommendation, then it can come to BET and then BET could look at it. At least the commissioner offices at that point would have discussed it in detail. But just coming to BET, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to carve out money if BOCC isn't interested in increasing that particular contract. That was the thought of not just me, but it was BET in general.
Keith, the resident expert on building maintenance and operations. Resident expert. $31,000 to keep that building up and running. I know that 7 to 10 years is kind of a breakover point for a new building. What kind of warranties do we have?
I think some of
What
that's
kind of
pay
things are-
raises. That 31,000,
I thought it
wasn't
was
some of
20.
that pay raises?
No, 25 was for pay raises that she didn't have covered.
I apologize. I just came up with a number, Keith, of 6,000 for this
Oh,
next
okay.
budget year. Again, not knowing that, of course, I was out 10,000 this year.
Okay. So what kind of money are we looking at for M&O increase on that structure?
You know, you're out of any kind of a warranty at this point, and if you were to assign some per square foot figure, you know, maybe $20 a foot, somewhere in that, it's all a guess.
Yeah.
You know, it's all a guess. So if you're gonna budget in that way, you can assign a figure and set it aside. $20 a foot, $50 a foot, something like that.
What's the square footage?
And I think we're 7,500, 10,000 square feet. I don't recall.
So you're talking 15 to 20.
I don't recall. We've typically not addressed maintenance or upkeep in that manner. We've simply addressed the issues as they
Well aware.
come up.
Well aware.
Uh-huh. But keep in mind, as the building ages, so do the systems.
Yeah. Okay.
In this case, you know, the only thing I would be looking at, I know you've had some roof issues, roof leaks there.
Wow. Already.
HVAC would be another concern, lighting, electrical.
And, you know, I appreciate Keith working with me on this, and I'm okay. I mean, if we don't know, you know, we don't know what's gonna happen. We might go a year and nothing happens, and I know I'm a little different. So I don't mind if you guys wanted to redo the contract to say that we wouldn't be liable for some of that, and that the county would, and that way, if something happens, it does or it doesn't. I mean, I'm open to whatever. I just know that if I'm gonna be responsible, then I need some funding for it.
My big thing, honestly, at this point is, several have heard me say this time and time again, we need to stay as flat as possible currently.
Sure.
And if we can push this till September for any increase and then just do, I don't know, if we change a contract and operate within last year's contract, or if that, I know sometimes we have contracts that kind of, we can operate without renewing them. Explain.
I don't. First of all, this is a service that the county is required to provide if we have the budgetary authority to do so. All right. So number one, it's mandatory, but there is a caveat. Number two, like some other entities around here that we're asked to fund, we don't get to determine when and how our employees get raises. Here, we don't get that. We're just asked to fund it. So the part-time, while worthy, I've said before and I'll say it again, I am adamantly opposed, to funding new positions that may later be ongoing with COVID money. So I appreciate that LaDonna wants to increase her contract amount yet, and this is, you know, Oklahoma State offers this in 76 other counties, this service in 76 other counties. I think I'd like a little more. What do they pay for in those 76 other counties in terms of facilities, upkeep, etc.? So I, for one, I think this is premature, especially given what you've said that we may be looking at a flat budget.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to stay flat right now, and then we can re-examine this in September. I don't think there's any doubt about that, because it's not going to hurt your budget to go to September.
No, Miles, I think what will happen is that I would go ahead and put it on the agenda for the BOCC at the current or the last year's rate. They would approve it hopefully. And then in September, I would have to put it back on and amend it because, you know, it's a contract. So I'd have to amend it with the new amount, whatever the BOCC would allow. But I just want to, I know there's 76 counties out there, but I tell you what, you guys, Oklahoma County, as you guys know, is the biggest county. And my staff is amazing. The hours they put in, the service they provide your residents, they will go the extra mile to do anything for Oklahoma County residents. And the service they provide is just amazing. I have an amazing staff. I'm tearful because they work so hard and they don't hardly get paid anything. I mean, it's just sad that, you know, it's like LaDonna, I'm working, you know, they work weekends and nights and all of that. in this $25,000 that I'm in the red, I'm not sure what I'm going to do because I can't let any of them go. But again, thinking in September, if I could get a little bit of increase, we're talking about a whole year, so I could be able to operate for a little bit on that. But I do not want to let anyone go, and I need to hire more people. Again, I just can't say enough about what my staff does and what they do for Oklahoma County.
But I know no one's saying that your staff isn't valuable. As a matter of fact, the entire staff of Oklahoma County, whether they're at the extension or they're
I
in this
agree.
building or they're down the street, they all work extremely hard. They're all important. But we face these same questions with every group that we look at in terms of who's going to get the funding, especially at this early in the process. So
No, I agree
let me,
that, Joe.
let me ask you, have you had any vacancies throughout this current year?
I haven't had any vacancies in the last 3 years.
Okay.
I did have some turnover on 4-H there for a while, but my two 4-H educators have been with us this summer, be 3 years both.
So when OSU gives you a directive, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, for instance, and you have to have staff to do that. They don't provide you any additional funding.
No, and that's the thing that it's kind of complicated because, when you look at somebody in another county, and I'm not going to say a specific county, but, they might have, well, they do have a lot less residents to service than we have here in Oklahoma County. So, they might be in the office majority of the time just doing whatever. Well, we're literally, out and about all the time. So it's one of those things, Joe, that we're not really told. We're told what to do, but my staff will go above and beyond. We don't want to be average, so that's kind of the difference, I guess, if that explains, kind of.
Oklahoma County, via this, I don't want to misstate this, but
Okay.
my assumption is any policy directives for the extension and the services you provide are dictated by Oklahoma State.
Right.
And you have discretion within some of that, correct?
Right. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at, the discretion. Yes.
So if Oklahoma State dictates that you do something that results in an increase in your budget, essentially they're dictating to the county that we have to fund that. And right?
True. Or I have to, as county director, have to take the measures of making my budget work.
So while your people are important, when it comes to that, it's not the county that would force you to lay someone off. It's Oklahoma State, because they're putting additional duties onto you beyond what your contract amount with the county is. Is that a fair statement?
Right. I'm just saying it's probably the system. It's not you guys. Right. It's just, it is what it is.
If Oklahoma County only has a certain budgetary authority to go towards this contract, and Oklahoma State wants you to perform, or you feel that you need to perform additional duties, then Oklahoma State could fund those, correct? To avoid layoffs, to provide raises, et cetera.
That's above my pay grade, but I could ask, sure.
Okay.
I mean, I could always ask.
Right, and that's part of this whole thing, is why I'm saying I think some of this is premature. BET is still, as of yet, to make a recommendation on a budget or budget options. So I, for one, think this is premature.
Yeah, no, I
Okay, and I mean, I have to get my contract, of course, approved in June, well, before the next fiscal year. So this is my timing that I usually bring this, so,
my suggestion would be to stay flat.
okay.
Keep last year's contract, run that. I don't know what anybody else thinks, and then with everything that we're reexamining throughout the year, and my understanding about the budget is we'll be looking at reexamining everybody in September, because we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. The June 28th is a big date. We don't know what
Okay.
kind of lift we may or may not have to make.
So let
that's
me
the
ask
deal.
you this, in September, where do I come back to you guys? Where do I go? What would be my step?
I would probably come back here.
Okay.
One of the things that I would work on between now and then is working with Oklahoma State to find out what they're willing to kick in on a mandated pay raise of an unfunded mandated pay raise
Mhm.
to you.
That's the reason we only get them like every 4 or 5 years, because
Yeah,
they don't have the money.
yeah, definitely. I would tell you that a university that size has
Well,
more
it's
than enough.
it's funny because people that think OSU has plenty of money, but we're extension. We're not.
Yeah,
We
no.
we can't raise tuition funds. We're not. We don't operate that way. So we're one of those
I understand
triangles.
that. I
But
get that.
yeah,
You're kind of stuck in a weird spot. I understand that. But
well, I
if
appreciate
they're-
you guys listening to me today and giving me guidance on how to move forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to receive the discussion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Entertain a motion to
Aye.
recess
Sorry.
into executive session.
Second.
Motion and second on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Motion to return from executive session.
Second.
Motion and second to return. All those in favor say aye.
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 Proceed as, on item 8, Chairman, motion to proceed as discussed.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any citizens today? Board comments?
No, thank you.
I'll wait.
All right. Any, all right, any new business before the board today? Seeing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seeing no other items before us, we are adjourned.
It was almost right.
Somebody will have to write that one down, because that's a lot of big words for me.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. When I say go forth, is it F